Dan Horgan. We are so excited to have you here. Welcome to Cop to Corporate.
Thanks, Sammy. It is good to see you.
So you have had a about 20-year-long career in the military, but in between you worked as a police officer at the Baltimore Police Department. So what got you into police work?
Yeah, so I was a little thing called 9/11 that's coming up happened. Yeah, so I was actually working at MB&A America. So I was in the reserves. So I went from active duty and then into the Air Force Reserve. So I'm in the Air Force Reserves, and I'm in the Air Force Reserves as an Air Force cop, security forces, because I held that job, prior, in my career. And so 9/11 happened, got put back on active duty orders, and I was at Andrews Air Force Base. So we're at Andrews, and so a lot of other units were augmenting us. So I had friends that were like Virginia state troopers. We had guys and gals that were Jersey cops and Jersey state troopers. My teammate, eventually, one of the things I did in the Air Force was called Raven. I can talk about that. But my partner for there was actually on the SWAT team for DC. So he was a DC cop. So you're working with these, and any Air Force cop who listens is going to hate this, real cops. So you're working with like real police officers. And I got the bug, right? It's really what it was. I got the bug. And you heard all this. So during that time on those active duty orders, which was just a little over a year. So I was back on active duty. We're at Andrews. I applied for Baltimore, right? So I grew up in the Baltimore area. My mother still lives in Maryland. Yeah, I applied, and we worked like one of those schedules, like 12-hour days, but so it was like 3 days on, 2 days off, but they rotated. So I was able to do, because most when you go for your physical and your testing and stuff, it's probably during the week, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but I was able to make all my appointments, right? And I passed everything, and I don't know, just like, I guess sometimes the moon and stars aligned, and so right when my orders ended in January of 2003 is when the academy started, and I got picked up. Like I made the selection. So I was in class 0301, yeah, for the Baltimore Police Department.
That's really exciting. How long did you spend there?
October of 2010 is when I left.
So military career, police career, and then now you're out of all of that. Then you went to work for the very special Black Rifle Coffee Company. Tell us how you got in with Black Rifle.
Yeah, Black Rifle would be number 3 on that list when I say like being a JTAC and a TAC P and then being a cop. Black Rifle's number 3. So my wife is still in, so I'm a military spouse now. I retired from the Oklahoma Guard in 2016. She's still in. Well, she wanted to further her career, so she's Guard, but she took full-time orders here to San Antonio. So I'm in San Antonio, and Black Rifle, has or had, they had people here in San Antonio. Evan used to live here. Well, I'm here. I was doing some contract work, but I was always on Indeed looking, right? Just, still just trying to find that home, just because contract work, right, it can end. And I wanted something permanent. And this is definitely a LinkedIn success story. I don't really talk too much about it, but I do. Scott Harvey was the COO at the time. We were connected, but we didn't know each other. I DM him and I'm like, hey, I see this job ad. How about a combat veteran E7? So I was senior NCO who used to do the same job for so I worked at an aviation company back in Oklahoma, and I worked for Daryl, and Daryl was the CEO, and I was kind of doing the same thing. That sparked Scott, and then I interviewed. So they brought me in. So I interviewed with Shane, and they had a contract person in with Shane who was helping them. I started a week later.
This is what I preach pretty much every episode and on my own LinkedIn, is making those connections and shooting your shot is absolutely life-changing.
It 100% is. Yeah.
You had a great transition from the military to Black Rifle to what a lot of people probably would think was like a dream job. But you've written before on your LinkedIn that transitioning to the civilian realm is not a walk in the park. It's like building a spaceship. So what does that mean to you?
It's not a walk in the park. And even now, failure is not the word, but like I hopped around. We talked a little earlier. I hopped around this year after leaving. The transition, it can be tough, and you have to know yourself. And that's the thing. I'm older, but I would even tell you, being older, I still make the joke, like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. You look at that, it's constantly evolving. Yeah. So it's like you're already in the air, the plane, right? It's an analogy people like said, like you're trying to build a plane while you're already in the air, and you're like, it is. But that's the thing. But God, this is going to sound so like deeply positive. You're in the air. You're heading towards space. Like you're already off the ground. That's phenomenal, right? Yeah, great. It's going to be difficult, right? It's going to, you're going to have highs and lows, but you're flying. We're flying. Like that's
Exciting.
phenomenal, right? So it's like keep that going.
And you're super transparent on LinkedIn, especially about how you haven't been able to find the right fit for you over the last year since leaving Black Rifle. So I'm sure that that makes a lot of people feel better when they're looking and just can't seem to find a place where they feel like they're really like honing in their skills and really feel like their heart is fulfilled and like they're doing exactly what they want. So what have you learned about yourself and the job searching process through this last year?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, from what I learned again that I'm really trying to find, I guess, I made I think a joke to somebody. I was saying my soulmate. I was just trying to find my soulmate, and not that Black Rifle wasn't. Like we talked about, like spread. You said like it spread my wings, but that's what you talk about too. Everything comes to an end. I mean, even if you look at a military or police career, right? I did 7 years, in the Baltimore. I did 20 some years. 20 some years is still long, but it comes to an end. Black Rifle, it was 3.5, 4 years. I went with a company right after Black Rifle was kind of what I got wooed into that I did. I only stayed there 67 days. After that, though, there was a 7-week stint, right? I mean, so I was unemployed for 7 weeks and then got really lucky. And but actually was another, I'll tell you, that's actually another LinkedIn story. And I don't mind talking about it because I'm friends with them. So when I left that beer company, it was a Saturday morning. I saw a post from my buddy Cortez Riggs. Cortez runs, it's called the Military Influencer Conference, but don't think of influencer as like IG influencer. Think of just like influencer, like entrepreneurial mentorship influencing with We Are the Mighty. And so Cortez was like, hey, We Are the Mighty, which is, under a parent company, which also owns like Task and Purpose. Hey, we're looking for like a digital ad salesperson. And again, it's a Saturday morning and I see Cortez type that. And I was like, yes, me, like I can do that. But I interviewed and went through and I ended up getting it. But again, it was it was a scenario where I saw, and that was a classic one too. I was there and I was there about 4 months. The team was great. The company was great, right? It's obviously veteran and military heavy. So it's all fantastic. But it came down to sales. So it was digital ad sales. So if Kathy ever listened to this, Kathy was my boss. She was a VP. And we're having a conversation one day. And somehow she asked me like how I was doing or if this is what I wanted to do or something, not in a negative way. And when she asked that, it literally felt the weight of the world was lifted. And I was like, no, no. I was like, Kath, no, I don't want to do it. And I think she was taken a little back. She's like, oh, okay. And I ended up leaving. But again, it was on my own accord. But I knew, right? I knew I was just like I did. It's just not,
How would you describe it? Like, what is the feeling that you
yeah,
have?
it's the breakup scene. It's me, not you.
Yeah.
It's just
You just felt like it didn't align with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I because you can. So here's the other thing. We all have bills, right? And this is what, as we talk, hopefully we're helping people because you can be like, all right, yeah, great, dude. You could take a job and quit and then try for another one. But yeah, I mean, no, I have bills. Like I'm not wealthy, right? So my wife is she has an income, but I have 3 boys, right? One's in college, one's a junior, and one's in 5th grade, right? And the one in 5th grade is going to a private school. Right? There's tuition. I mean, we have a mortgage and bills. So I have bills. So it's not like I'm quitting on a whim, right? My wife would probably argue sometimes but it's really not on a whim because I'm very prevalent like, hey, we have bills. So that's even when we mentioned the entrepreneur. So I ended up creating an LLC right when I was leaving that company and I ended up like signing clients.
So you've got your LLC,
Yep.
Free Range Texas.
Yep.
So I'm sure that there are a lot of cops out there who are also interested in starting their own businesses.
Yeah.
What skills from law enforcement do you think that you brought to the entrepreneur world?
So I think that tenacity, organization, right, fall into it. But that's what's weird with me, right? Is I went from the cop and military to being semi-creative. When I say that, like, right, there's people way more out there, but I'm holding my own and having some fun with it. But that's the thing as a cop, though, it's just like don't let the job consume you because I know I did. Like when I was like, if I wouldn't have had my military stuff and just would have been that 7 years of like being a cop, I mean, that's who I was. I mean, that badge and, and the gun and the stuff that I did in Baltimore. I mean, and that's, again, my wife, when we left 2010 that was me. If you don't think you're going to do 20 or whatever, like you got to have some I don't even want to say an exit strategy because I'm not a huge fan of like calling it or thinking of it as an exit strategy. But there's just got to be something like, what would I do?
Would you say
But
that using LinkedIn would be your number one advice for cops, or what insider tips could you give people that are planning on leaving?
yeah, so I like a combo. So obviously, friends like the joke that I'm like a professional job searcher. I like using an Indeed with a LinkedIn kind of combo. LinkedIn really for sure, but not all companies use it. All right. And which is, I would scream at them. They should be. So I like to sprinkle that and you can get on Indeed. But the cop world, you're not going to land a marketing gig right away if you don't have any marketing one again. And I didn't land a marketing role or a branding role when I started with Evan. It was, the hand.
You made those connections within the company too, and really
Yes.
showed what skills you ended up having.
Yeah. Right. But I think on the cop side, like if something like that didn't happen, like operations management, even project management, because again, we talk about, so not that we talked about it, but like certifications, get a PMP while you're an officer, right? Or there's other stuff. Or so communication. I already talked about the organization, the writing skills.
Well, Dan, we are super thankful that you came on the show. You have a very rich tapestry of experiences, and I really recommend following him on LinkedIn because he has a lot of not only inspirational posts, but transparent posts and advice about job searching and just insight into his own life, which might help you figure out what your next step is. So, Dan, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Sam. Yeah, hopefully, I always say if one person gets something, I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.